Welcome to the next part of this story, and also in my room here, just to do a quick show and tell. These are beautiful wooden structures that I have created from a tree that had fallen between my neighbor's house and my house. I grew up with these trees, so I wanted to honor them, and they're turned into spiritual bookshelves, and they're designed in the shape of a human. Perhaps I'll do a share session in the future for that. Now, in the last episode of this book, we had Comet, who had just gone into the pond, was eating duckweed and mosquito larvae, things like that. In the science section, I had talked about mosquitoes, their proboscis, and also, are mosquitoes beneficial? And it turns out that there may be some benefits to mosquitoes. Now let's get on to the new part of this story right over here. Comet grew and grew, much larger than he would have grown in a small fishbowl. So much so that Tim would have been very surprised to see him. And this is factually correct, and I'll talk more about that in the next page. The pond was large and vast, surrounded by tall trees, maybe like the trees that used to be these beautiful sculptures that I've made. The pond was not clear, and that helped Comet hide during the day. And this is actually factually correct too. Those goldfish will often make ponds go from being clear to being not clear, and I'll talk about that in the next page too. He also did not venture out too far yet, as he was not brave enough to explore and adventure past the pond. Comet was also very intelligent, because he knew that as he grew, he would become a target with his bright orange skin, which would attract all kinds of predators to try to eat him for a meal. And let me give you a close-up of the picture itself. This was the previous picture Dave Frankel had made look really nice, and I just copied and pasted it and then added all of this here. You can see Comet has grown larger, and the pond has gone from being clear to unclear. Now, let's go learn about the science of it. So in the science section, the first thing to look at is look at this goldfish in the arms of this ranger. Now, most goldfish in those goldfish bowls are pretty small, but as you can see, you release them, they become an invasive species inside a pond that they are not evolved to be in, and they can get huge. And this, I believe, is from the Niagara River. So they can be in rivers and things like that. So massive, massive fish now. Also, the imagery here that I drew or copy pasted with Dave Frankel's picture was motivated from this paper, which I've cited somewhere over here, down here. But let's see if you see it. You see, it starts off the pond very clear. This is what it says: a newt-dominated pond, and this is an actual research study that people had done. And then you can see that once the goldfish come inside, oh my goodness, that is a radical change. And you can see, if you look at these graphs over here, what they're trying to show is that the biodiversity is changing quite a bit, reducing because of these goldfish. So, some of the things that the goldfish do is that they'll go down into the pond and start, flicking up that mud as they're trying to eat. Sometimes they do bottom feeding, and that releases a lot of mud and stuff into the water, making it very cloudy. And then that cloudiness prevents sunlight from getting down to the lower levels, and so the aquatic plants that grow down lower no longer do as well, and they begin to die off. And then a lot of species who rely on that began to suffer as a result. And then on top of that, the goldfish eat those suffering species. And so from two places, those species get attacked. And so the biodiversity begins to collapse. It begins to reduce because of all of these different factors. And some examples of the creatures who are affected are zooplankton and tadpoles of different frogs, such as the gray tree frog tadpole. And that is most of the stuff on this page over here. And then this page over here is on frogs. And a lot of people know about frogs. This is a beautiful redrawing that I guess I did. And frogs lay these egg bundles over here. They're often coated in jelly that the mother frog makes. Frogs spawn. and then those eggs turn into little tadpoles, and eventually those tadpoles will start to sprout legs, and eventually you turn it into a frog with a little bit of tail. And between these stages here, the frog is going from having gills, breathing underwater, to then having lungs. What an amazing transformation to have two different mechanisms of breathing, and then eventually turn into the frog itself. So let's see. So pet goldfish were wrongfully released into the ponds, and again, this is not the fault of the goldfish. There's a little bit of complexity we're adding here, right? The main person or whatever, the goldfish is the main character, and we're rooting for the goldfish, but at the same time is destroying pieces of the ecosystem, and really this is the fault of the humans. But what can we do? These are complex things to talk about. So the goldfish are eating the frogs, and the tadpoles, and the vegetation's dying, where the tadpoles often hide. As a side note here, I shared a story. In like the New England area, there are these things called vernal pools, and vernal pools are pools that fill up with water and then drain. And as a result, fish cannot live in there. And so they become a hotbed for amphibians, for things like frogs and salamanders. And Big Night is, what they say, is the first rainfall of spring. And all of the amphibians come out and have a huge, mating event. And I've always wanted to see that. I always go and try to look for it, and I have not really found it. I've heard it, seen a little bit of it, but not in its full glory. I want to see salamanders and things like that. So one of these days, we may be able to do it. And then there's some interesting frog facts I found. So take a look at this frog right over here. It's frozen solid. So it seems, right? And so a lot of these frogs, what they're capable of doing is they have a biochemical form of antifreeze that runs through their blood. And that, as a result, protects their organs, even as it seems that their whole body is frozen completely solid. Extraordinary, extraordinary. And the frog skins are actually quite interesting too. So in this really nice image right over here, see this? And I forgot to put the citation for this, so that maybe the next version will have that. But take a look at the different organisms and how different organisms do oxygen exchange. So you've got fish in there, you've got bird, you've got mammal, like us, and then you've got the frog ones. And the frogs have, I believe, capillaries very close to their skin, so their oxygen exchange can happen through their skin, and so they can breathe like that too. But as a result, because their skin is so thin, they have to keep it clean and moist, and they protect it with a thick mucus that they secrete. And the final interesting thing is that some frogs can drink through special patches on the underside of their skin, and then some frogs can eat their skin too. Okay.